Hey everyone! For 60 years, one character has gone from a symbol of war to a global icon. Today, we're going to unpack the controversial, complicated journey of Iron Man, a story that's as much about our changing world as it is about the man inside the suit. So, it really all boils down to one big question. How on earth did a character created to be an arrogant, pro-war industrialist, literally the poster boy for the military-industrial complex, become a hero that the whole world just loves? Well, the answer to that paradox is the story we're about to get into.
Okay, so the first thing you have to understand about Iron Man is that he was designed on purpose to be unlikable. Picture this. It's the early 1960s, the Cold War is at its peak, and anti-war sentiment is really starting to grow. And right then, his creator, Stan Lee, decides to try something kind of crazy.
And there you have it, right from the man himself. Stan Lee basically dared himself to create the ultimate capitalist, a weapons tycoon, and somehow, someway, get the anti-establishment readers of the time to actually root for him. It was a huge creative gamble, and it would define this character for decades to come.
All right, so let's rewind all the way to the beginning. Iron Man wasn't just created during the Cold War, he was a direct product of it. His entire identity was just steeped in the politics of the 1960s.
The man in the suit, Tony Stark, was actually modeled on a real person, Howard Hughes. The famous inventor, pilot, and, reclusive billionaire. This grounded him in a reality people could recognize and created a character who was brilliant, rich, and completely unapologetically arrogant. And man, his rise was fast. Just look at this timeline. It shows how quickly he became a major player. In his very first year, he gets his origin story, he gets that classic red and gold armor, and he helps found the Avengers, the cornerstone of the entire Marvel universe. Talk about hitting the ground running. In the early days, the comics were not subtle about the politics, not at all. Stark gets captured in Vietnam. His biggest enemies are Soviet super soldiers in their own powered armor. The stories were just blatant allegories. Iron Man standing for American ingenuity and capitalism against the big, bad threat of communism. But, as the world changed, Tony Stark had to change with it. By the 70s and 80s, that simple Cold War story was getting old. Writers started to realize that the most interesting battles weren't against some communist supervillain, but the ones happening inside Tony himself. And this is where things got really groundbreaking. The creative team decided to give their hero a deeply human, deeply relatable flaw: alcoholism. This wasn't some alien threat or a magic curse. It was a real-world disease. For a mainstream superhero comic at that time, this was an absolutely huge, unprecedented move. This led to the legendary Demon in a Bottle storyline. As you can see, his fall was brutal. The pressure gets to be too much, he turns to drinking, and he loses everything. His company, his fortune, his home. His greatest battle wasn't won with repulsor rays. It was won by confronting his own addiction. This made him human in a way he'd never been before, and it proved that superhero stories could tackle serious adult problems. And that theme of internal crisis just kept going. A few years later, we get Armor Wars. This time, the problem was responsibility. When Stark's armor tech gets stolen and sold on the black market, he becomes obsessed. He hunts down anyone using his designs, whether they're a villain or even another hero. It made you ask, is he still a hero? Or just a guy dangerously trying to control his own mess? Okay, so let's jump forward into the 21st century. The character evolves again. The old Cold War fears are gone, replaced by new ones. Things like terrorism, surveillance, and what it even means to be human in a world of high technology. Iron Man had to adapt. The Extremis storyline was a massive leap. To save his own life, Stark injects himself with this techno-organic virus, and in doing so, he basically merges with his own technology. The armor isn't just a suit he wears anymore, it's a part of him, stored inside his own body, controlled by his mind. The line between man and machine? Pretty much gone. And then came Civil War. This was a story that tapped right into the anxieties of a post-9/11 world. It asked a huge question: should we give up our freedom for the sake of security? Stark, the futurist who always wants to control every possible outcome, comes down hard on the side of security and government control, and that puts him on a collision course with his old friend Captain America. And what's really fascinating is how the readers reacted. For the most part, they didn't see a hero making a tough call, they saw the villain of the story. Stark became the powerful, overbearing system that the hero, Captain America, had to fight against. This really solidified his status as one of the most morally complex characters in comics. So you have all this complex, messy, brilliant history, right? The Cold War politics, the personal demons, the technological upgrades. All of it was creating this incredibly rich foundation for what was about to become a global phenomenon. Then came this year, 2008, a single year that didn't just change everything for the character, it changed everything for superhero movies. Period. The Iron Man movie was like a cultural detonation. It didn't just kick off the MCU, it managed to perfectly capture 45 years of comic history. Robert Downey Jr.'s incredible performance made Stark's arrogance charming. The sleek armor was straight out of the Extremis storyline. And those powerful hints of his personal demons? That was a direct nod to Demon in a Bottle. So here's the bottom line. The movie's success wasn't some lucky accident. It was built on decades of risky, complicated storytelling. It took a character who, let's be honest, was often a B-lister in the comics and shot him into the stratosphere, making him the absolute face of the Marvel brand. And that brings us right back to that central paradox. After 60 years, what is Tony Stark? Is he the ultimate story of redemption? A merchant of death who learned how to be a hero? Or is he a permanent cautionary tale about a man whose faith in technology always comes with a terrible price? The answer, just like the man himself, is complicated.